The champagne bottle exploded against the granite countertop, foam cascading down like a broken promise. Min-jae didn't even blink. His eyes stayed locked on his phone screen, his finger tracing a contact name that had haunted him for years but remained undialed. Until tonight. Min-jae. Zara's voice sliced through the tension like a blade through silk, controlled but cracking at the edges. Are you even here right now? He glanced up, his coal-black eyes meeting hers for a heartbeat before sliding back to the glowing screen in his palm. I'm listening. Then prove it. Where were you tonight? Business. The lie tasted stale even as it left his tongue, mechanical and hollow. Zara Adeyemi stood framed in the archway of their luxury apartment, her statuesque figure draped in midnight blue silk, her coiled hair piled high, revealing the graceful slope of her neck. She'd been stunning when they first crossed paths, back when Min-jae was nothing but hungry ambition wrapped in borrowed suits and desperate dreams. She remained breathtaking now, but he'd stopped really seeing her somewhere between the wedding vows and the empire he'd bled to build. 9 years together, one child, and somehow, she'd become invisible to him, a shadow in his peripheral vision. Business. Zara let the word hang in the air, watching it rot between them. The kind that leaves perfume on your shirt collar that isn't mine. Min-jae's jaw became stone. He placed his phone screen down on the counter with the deliberate care of someone defusing a bomb, then finally gave her his full attention. Not tonight, Zara. Not tonight. Her laughter came out sharp and jagged, a sound that could draw blood. Taeyoung waited for you. For hours, Min-jae. For hours at that school gymnasium with his science project on display, scanning every face that walked through those doors, hoping one of them would be yours. I'll make it right. That's your favorite song lately. She moved closer, her footsteps making no sound against the imported marble. He's 7 years old. He shouldn't have to earn scraps of his father's attention like some beggar at a feast. Min-jae's phone vibrated against the counter. The sound was subtle, barely a whisper, but his eyes betrayed him. They flickered toward it with a hunger he couldn't mask, and his entire body language shifted, softening like ice touched by spring sun. Zara saw it all. That look of tenderness, of yearning. She'd seen it before, but never, not once in 9 years, had it been for her. Who is she? The question came out barely above a whisper. Nobody. He snatched his phone and moved toward his office, his fortress of solitude. I have things to handle. Min-jae. His name from her lips sounded like a prayer that had stopped working. The office door clicked shut with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire penthouse, louder somehow than if he'd slammed it with rage. Zara stood marooned in the middle of their sprawling living room, an island surrounded by luxury that suddenly felt like quicksand. The floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Seoul's neon heartbeat below, every light a testament to the kingdom her husband had carved from violence and will, an empire he'd murder for, die for, but somehow couldn't stay present for. Not for her. Not for their son. She found herself walking to Taeyoung's room, pushing the door open with the gentleness reserved for handling broken things. Her son lay curled beneath his blankets, his small body angled toward the wall like he was trying to disappear into it. She knew he was awake. A mother always knows. Baby. She settled onto the edge of his bed, her hand finding his small shoulder. Taeyoung turned slowly, and when his eyes met hers, they were mirror images of his father's, down to the red-rimmed evidence of tears he tried to hide. He didn't show up. I know, sweetheart. Something came up at the last minute. Something always comes up. Taeyoung's voice fractured down the middle. He doesn't care about me anymore. That's not true, baby. Then why does he care more about her? The world stopped spinning. What? Taeyoung sat up, pulling his knees to his chest in that universal gesture of childhood self-protection. I heard him last week, on the phone in his office. I was walking by and the door was open a little. He said a woman's name. He said he'd do anything to protect her, that she was worth any risk. Taeyoung's small hands twisted his blanket into knots. Who is she, Mom? Why does Dad love her more than he loves us? Zara felt something fundamental break inside her chest, felt the fracture lines spread like a windshield struck by a stone. She pulled her son into her arms, holding him tight enough to keep both their pieces from scattering. Her mind was a storm. She'd suspected for months, had cataloged the evidence like a detective building a case she didn't want to solve. The phantom hours, the distant stares, The way Min-jae touched his phone like it contained the secrets of the universe. But hearing it from Taeyoung's lips, knowing her baby had been carrying this weight alone, made it real in a way her own suspicions never could. Your father loves you. She whispered the words into his hair like an incantation. Never doubt that truth. But even as the words left her mouth, she wondered if love without presence was really love at all, or just another pretty lie adults tell children to help them sleep. Min-jae stood in his office, staring at the message glowing on his screen like a beacon from another lifetime. I need to see you. It's urgent. 7 words from a woman he'd loved in another life. And just like that, his carefully constructed world tilted on its axis. A1. His first love. The girl he'd abandoned when he'd chosen this path. This darkness. This blood-soaked ascent to power. He'd convinced himself that chapter had closed, that marrying Zara had been the right move, the smart play. Zara was strong, unshakable, willing to stand beside him despite the crimson staining his hands. But Haewon had been sunlight. She'd been music and innocence and everything pure he'd lost the night he'd taken his first life at 19. His thumbs moved across the screen almost of their own accord. Where? The reply came instantly, like she'd been holding her breath waiting. Our old place. Tomorrow night. Please, Min-jae. I have nowhere else to turn. He should have deleted the message. Should have blocked the number. Should have walked down that hallway and crawled into bed beside his wife. Should have checked on his son. Instead, his fingers typed 4 words that would detonate his life. I'll be there. Morning arrived like a stranger. Zara woke to cold sheets beside her. The emptiness so familiar it barely registered anymore. She moved through her routine on autopilot, cooking breakfast, preparing Taeyoung for school, wearing a smile like armor when all she wanted to do was scream until her throat bled. Min-jae materialized briefly, a ghost passing through his own life. He grabbed coffee, barely acknowledged their existence before his phone sang its siren song and he evaporated again. Taeyoung's voice was small, hopeful. Can you take me to school today? Like you used to? Not this morning, son. I have a meeting that can't wait. You always have meetings that can't wait. Min-jae paused at the door, and guilt flashed across his features so quickly Zara almost thought she'd imagined it. This weekend. I promise we'll do something special this weekend. You promised that last weekend, Min-jae. Zara's voice carried a warning he chose to ignore. He left. The door closed. The apartment exhaled. In the car, Taeyoung pressed his forehead against the window, watching Seoul blur past. Zara studied him in the rearview mirror, her heart performing a slow-motion collapse. Want to get ice cream after school? Your favorite place? Only if Dad comes with us. Baby, we can still have fun, just the 2 of us. I don't want ice cream without Dad. Taeyoung's voice had gone flat, lifeless. I don't want anything without Dad anymore. Zara pulled into the school parking lot, fighting back the tears that had been building behind her eyes like a dam about to burst. She twisted in her seat to face him directly. Your father is going through something complicated right now. Adult things. Is it my fault? Taeyoung's question came out so small it nearly broke her. What? No. Baby, no. None of this has anything to do with you. Then why doesn't he want to be around me anymore? The question hung between them like smoke from a fire neither of them knew how to put out. Zara unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed into the back seat, pulling her son into her lap like she used to when he was smaller. Listen to me carefully. Your father's distance has nothing to do with who you are. You are the greatest thing that ever happened to him. To both of us. Don't you ever forget that. But as she watched Taeyoung walk into school, his small shoulders carrying a burden no child should know, Zara understood that words had lost their power. Promises had become meaningless. Something had to change, or this slow death of her family would become permanent. That evening, Min-jae left at 7. He'd showered, changed into clothes that didn't carry the scent of cordite and expensive whiskey, and grabbed his keys without offering any explanation. Where are you going? Zara asked from the couch where she'd been pretending to read the same page for the past hour. I already told you. Business. What kind of business requires you to shower and dress like you're going on a date? His eyes went dangerous, that look he reserved for people who questioned him. The kind that pays for everything you see around you. I never asked for any of this, Min-jae. I asked for you. You have me. Do I? She stood, setting her book aside with deliberate care. Because it feels like I'm married to a ghost. Someone who wears my husband's face but checked out of this life a long time ago. Zara, I don't have time for this drama tonight. You never have time. Not for me. Not for Tae-young. But somehow, mysteriously, you always have time for her. The temperature in the room plummeted. Min-jae's face went carefully blank. That mask he wore when interrogating enemies. When deciding who lived and who disappeared. I don't know what you think you know. Don't insult me by lying to my face. Zara's voice shook but held firm. I've stood beside you through everything. The violence. The danger. The blood you can never quite wash off your hands completely. I've never asked you to be anything other than what you are. But I won't compete with someone who doesn't even exist in your real life. There's no competition. Then who is she? Min-jae moved toward the door. I'll be back late. Don't wait up. He was gone before she could respond. And Zara stood alone in the echoing silence, feeling the foundation of everything she'd built with him crumbling beneath her feet like sand. The old tea house hadn't changed in 15 years. Same worn wooden tables, same smell of jasmine and old paper, same corner booth tucked away from prying eyes. Min-jae slid into the seat where Hae-won waited, her delicate hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She looked up, and time performed a magic trick, collapsing 15 years into nothing. She was still beautiful, still fragile in that way that had always made him want to build walls around her, to protect her from the world, from himself. Min-jae. His name broke apart in her mouth. Thank you for coming. I didn't know if you would. What's wrong? What kind of trouble? Bad trouble. The worst kind. She reached across the table, her fingers trembling against his. I borrowed money from people I shouldn't have. They're threatening me now. The interest keeps multiplying and I can't keep up and I'm scared. Min-jae. I'm so scared and I didn't know who else to call. How much do you owe? 3 million won. I've tried to pay them back but it's like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon. Tears spilled down her cheeks, carving tracks through carefully applied makeup. I know I have no right to ask anything from you after all these years. I know you have your own life now. But please, I'm drowning. Min-jae felt that old protective instinct surge through him like electricity. This was Hae-won, the girl who'd held his hand at his father's funeral, who'd believed he could rise above the streets that spawned him, before he'd proven her wrong by diving deeper into the darkness. I'll take care of it. The words came easily, too easily. Give me names. I can't let you hurt people because of my mistakes. I won't hurt anyone. I'll simply help them understand that you're under my protection now. He squeezed her hand gently. It's going to be okay. Promise. You always kept your promises to me. She smiled through her tears, and Min-jae felt something stir in his chest that had been dormant for years. Something he thought was dead and buried. I missed you, Hae-won. I know you're married now. You have a family. I'm not trying to complicate your life or cause problems. I just needed help and you're the only person in this world I still trust. He should have withdrawn his hand. Should have drawn clear boundaries, paid her debt, and walked away clean. Instead, he heard himself say, I missed you too. They talked for 3 hours. About old times, old dreams, the future they'd imagined before reality had carved them into different people. When Min-jae finally left the tea house, he felt warm in a way his penthouse never made him feel. He came home past midnight to find Zara still awake, sitting in the dark living room like a statue in a museum after closing time. Did you sleep with her? Her voice was calm, which somehow made the question more terrifying than if she'd screamed it. No, but you wanted to. Min-jae didn't answer. The silence was confession enough. Who is she? Min-jae. What does she have that I don't? It's not that simple. Then make it simple for me. Because from where I'm sitting, you're choosing someone else over your wife and son, and I'd really love to understand the logic. He moved to pour himself whiskey, keeping his back to her. Her name is Hae-won. We were together before I entered this life. Before everything became complicated. And now she's back. She needed help. And you went running. Zara stood, moving closer. Did you ever actually love me, Min-jae? Or was I just the convenient choice when you couldn't have her? That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Her voice finally rose, years of swallowed frustration erupting. I loved you when you had nothing but ambition and debt. I stood by you when everyone said I was insane. I left my family, my country, my entire life to be here with you. And you can't even look at me without seeing her ghost. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Tell me what she has that makes you forget you have a son who cries himself to sleep waiting for you to remember he exists. Min-jae slammed his glass down hard enough that it's a miracle it didn't shatter. She never asked me to be someone I'm not. She didn't demand my time or attention or soul. With her, I could just exist. He stopped, but the damage was already spreading like poison. Zara's face went very still. So that's what I am to you. A demand. An obligation. Zara, get out. This is my house. Then I'll leave. She walked toward the bedroom, her spine straight despite the tremor running through her entire body. But when I go, Min-jae, I'm taking our son. And we won't be coming back. You're overreacting. She turned in the doorway, and the look in her eyes made him take an involuntary step backward. I'm protecting my son from watching his father choose everyone except him. If you can't be the man we need, then we'll learn to live without you. The bedroom door closed with a finality that sounded like a coffin lid. Min-jae told himself she didn't mean it. That morning would come and they'd talk and things would smooth over like they always did. That this was just another storm to weather. He was catastrophically wrong. Over the next month, Min-jae saw Haewon 8 more times. He told himself elaborate lies, constructed beautiful justifications. It was about her safety, about ensuring the debt situation was properly handled, about protecting an old friend who'd once meant everything. But lies, no matter how beautifully dressed, are still just lies. The truth was simpler and more damning. Being with Haewon made him feel young again, unburdened by the weight of his empire and the expectations that came with it. She didn't look at him with disappointment carved into her features. She didn't make him feel like he was failing. She looked at him like he was still that boy she'd loved before blood had permanently stained his hands. Meanwhile, his marriage died in slow motion, like watching a flower wilt frame by frame. Zara stopped asking where he was going, stopped waiting up with the living room lights on, stopped reaching for him in bed in those quiet hours before dawn. The silence between them grew thick and suffocating. A wall built one brick of resentment at a time. Taeyoung stopped asking when Dad would be home, stopped saving drawings to show him, stopped performing for an audience that never showed up. Min-jae noticed vaguely that something was shifting in his household, that the air felt different, thinner somehow. But he was too intoxicated by his escape, too drunk on nostalgia, to pay attention to the cliff edge he was sprinting toward. The breaking point arrived on a Thursday that started like any other day destined to change everything. Taeyoung had a violin recital, his first real performance in front of an actual audience. Zara had reminded Min-jae 4 times, had marked it on every calendar, had sent him text reminders he'd acknowledged with thumbs-up emojis that turned out to be empty promises. But when Thursday arrived, Haewon called in tears. Someone had followed her home. She was terrified, alone, convinced the loan sharks had found her despite Min-jae's interventions. She needed him. Min-jae made his choice, the same choice he'd been making for a month. He chose the ghost over the living. He arrived at the recital hall 50 minutes late. The performance had ended. Parents milled around the lobby like flowers after a wedding, congratulating their children, taking photos, making memories. He spotted Zara and Taeyoung by the exit. His son still wore his little suit, the one they'd bought special for tonight. His face was blank, wiped clean of expression like a whiteboard erased. I'm sorry. Min-jae was slightly out of breath from running through the parking lot. Traffic was impossible and, don't. Zara's voice could have frozen fire. Don't you dare lie to him again. Not tonight. Mom, it's fine. Taeyoung said quietly, his voice carrying the resignation of someone 3 times his age. Can we just go home? Taeyoung, I wanted to be here. I tried to, but you weren't here. His son looked up at him, and Min-jae saw something terrible in those young eyes. Acceptance. The look of someone who'd stopped hoping, who'd learned not to expect anything so disappointment couldn't hurt anymore. It's okay, Dad. I'm used to it now. The words hit harder than any bullet Min-jae had ever taken. Hurt worse than any knife that had ever found his flesh. Son, Mr. Park. A teacher approached, smiling warmly at Zara. Taeyoung was absolutely magnificent tonight. You must be bursting with pride. I am. Zara pulled Taeyoung close, her arm around his shoulders. So incredibly proud. The teacher glanced at Min-jae, recognition flickering across her face, followed by something that looked uncomfortably like pity. Well, it's wonderful that you have such a devoted mother, Tae-young. That's what truly matters in the end. They left. Zara said nothing in the car, didn't respond to Min-jae's attempts at conversation, didn't acknowledge his existence beyond the bare minimum required by the laws of physics. At home, she put Tae-young to bed with whispered words Min-jae couldn't hear, then disappeared into their bedroom. When he entered an hour later, she was packing, methodically folding clothes, placing them in suitcases with the precision of someone who'd been planning this moment. What are you doing? What does it look like? She folded a sweater with mechanical precision. I'm leaving. You're not leaving. Watch me. The words were simple, final. He grabbed her wrist, spinning her to face him. Zara, stop. Let's talk about this like adults. Talk? She yanked her hand free, and for the first time in 9 years, he saw something in her eyes that looked like genuine hatred. You want to talk now? After you chose her over your son's first recital? After you looked Tae-young in the eye and broke his heart again? It was an emergency. She was in danger. It's always an emergency with her. Isn't it? Zara's voice shook. She calls you run. She needs you, you drop everything. Meanwhile, your actual family is here disintegrating and you don't even notice because you're too busy playing hero for a woman who isn't even your responsibility. That's not fair. You keep saying that like it's some magic spell that makes you right. She turned back to her packing, tears now streaming freely. But you never explain why. Why is it unfair for me to expect my husband to honor his commitments? Why is it unfair for your son to want his father present at the important moments? Zara, please, I can't do this anymore, Min-jae. The suitcase zipper sounded like a scream. I can't compete with a memory. I can't watch Tae-young break a little more every single time you choose her. I won't do it anymore. I'm not choosing anyone over you. That's exactly the problem. She faced him fully, her face wet with tears but her voice steady. You're not choosing us. You're not choosing your family. You're just drifting toward whatever feels easier, and I'm done being the harder choice. I'm making the decision for you. I'm choosing Tae-young's well-being over this marriage. Amina, please. Desperation crept into his voice for the first time. Just give me time to fix this. I can fix this. Time? Her laugh was bitter. I gave you 9 years, Min-jae. 9 years of waiting, hoping, believing you'd wake up and see what you had. I'm done waiting for you to notice we exist. Where will you go? Somewhere you can't find us. She pulled the suitcase off the bed. My lawyer will be in touch about divorce proceedings. I'm not asking for anything except what's fair for Tae-young. Keep your empire, your money, your precious first love. We just want peace. You can't take my son. I can and I will because I'm the parent who actually shows up. I'm the one who knows his favorite foods, his nightmares, his dreams. I'm the one who tucks him in and holds him when he cries because you broke his heart again. She moved to the door, pausing to look back at him one last time. You want to know the saddest part? Tae-young would forgive you in a heartbeat if you chose him just once. But you won't because that would mean giving up the fantasy of who you were with her. And that fantasy is apparently more valuable than your real life. Zara, one day you'll look for us and we won't be there. And when that day comes, Min-jae, I hope you remember this moment. I hope you remember that you had everything, and you threw it away for a ghost who was never going to stay. She walked out. The door closed. Min-jae stood frozen, his mind racing through calculations, probabilities, outcomes. She was angry, upset, emotional. She'd cool down, come back. They'd work through this like they'd worked through everything else. But morning proved him wrong. They were gone. Truly, completely gone. Zara and Tae-young's belongings had vanished. Clothes, photos, Tae-young's toys and books and all evidence he'd ever existed. The rooms looked the same but felt hollow, like a stage set after the performance has ended and the actors have gone home. On the kitchen counter, Min-jae found divorce papers and a letter. He opened it with hands that suddenly wouldn't stop shaking. Min-jae, I don't expect you to understand this now. Maybe you never will. But I need you to know that I loved you. I loved you when we met, when we married, even in these final months when you were barely present. I loved you enough to stay longer than I should have. But love isn't enough when only one person is fighting for it. Tae-young deserves better. He deserves a father who chooses him, who sees him, who shows up for him. Since you can't be that person, I'm removing us from the equation. Don't look for us. Let us heal. Maybe one day, when Taeyoung is older, he'll decide if he wants you in his life. Until then, goodbye, Zara. Min-jae read it 3 times. Then he called her phone. Straight to voicemail. He called again. And again. And again. Nothing. She'll come back, he told himself. This is just a tactic to scare me. She'll realize she needs me and come back. Days crawled past, then a week. The penthouse echoed with absence. Min-jae went through the motions of maintaining his empire, attending meetings, making deals, playing the role he'd built his life around. But at night, the silence was crushing. He'd walk past Taeyoung's empty bedroom and feel something fundamental crack inside. He'd see Zara's side of the closet cleared out except for a single forgotten scarf, and he'd smell her perfume still lingering in the fabric like a ghost. He told himself he was fine, that he'd been alone before and survived, that they were the ones losing out, not him, that he didn't need anyone. But then he'd come home to darkness and remember Taeyoung's small voice asking, "Why does Dad love her more than us?" And the cracks would spread wider, deeper, threatening to split him completely. 3 weeks after they left, Haewon called. "Can I see you? I want to thank you properly for everything you've done. You saved my life." Min-jae agreed because he didn't know what else to do with himself. They met at an expensive restaurant, the kind with more forks than anyone could possibly need. She looked beautiful, grateful, everything he'd imagined during all those years of wondering what if. But when she reached for his hand across the pristine white tablecloth, he felt nothing. The magic was gone, revealed as the illusion it had always been. "Min-jae, are you alright? You seem distant." "My wife left me." The words came out flat, factual. "Took my son with her." Haewon withdrew her hand like she'd touched something hot. "I'm so sorry. Is it because of—" "Yes." He looked at her directly, seeing clearly for the first time in months. "You knew I was married. You knew I had a son. But you kept calling, kept needing me, kept pulling me away from them. I needed help. You offered it freely. I did. And I lost everything because of it." He stood, pulling cash from his wallet and dropping it on the table. "Your debt is paid. Your problem is handled. Don't call me again." Min-jae, wait, but he was already walking away, leaving her sitting alone at that table. Another ghost fading in his rearview mirror. The empire began to crumble. Slowly at first, then all at once, like a building that looks solid until you realize the foundation has been rotting for years. Without Zara as his anchor, Min-jae made reckless decisions. Trusted the wrong people. Ignored warning signs that would have been obvious if his head had been clear. His second-in-command betrayed him, stealing territory and allies. A rival organization saw the weakness and attacked like sharks scenting blood. Money that should have been laundered properly got seized by authorities. Deals fell through. Alliances crumbled. Min-jae realized too late that Zara had been more than his wife. She'd been his strategist, his conscience, his connection to humanity. The person who'd grounded him when the violence threatened to consume him completely. Without her, he was just another brutal man in a brutal world. And there was always someone more brutal waiting to take what you had. 7 months after they left, Min-jae sat in his penthouse, surrounded by the ruins of everything he'd built. Half his territory was gone. Most of his allies had switched sides or disappeared. The authorities were circling, building cases he didn't have the energy or resources to evade anymore. And he was alone. Completely, devastatingly alone. Haewon had left Seoul 3 months ago, moved to Busan, sent him a brief thank you text, and vanished from his life as quickly as she'd re-entered it. The woman he'd sacrificed everything for hadn't even stayed to watch him fall. Min-jae started searching then. Hired private investigators. Called in favors he couldn't afford to call in. Spent money that should have gone to saving his crumbling empire. Took 9 months, but he finally found them. Zara and Taeyoung were living in a small coastal village 4 hours from Seoul. She'd taken back her maiden name. Found work teaching at a local college. Taeyoung was enrolled in a nearby school. Reportedly thriving, making friends, laughing again. They were flourishing without him. The private investigator's report included photos. Taeyoung had grown taller, his face less round, more defined. He was smiling in every picture. His eyes bright with joy Min-jae had never managed to put there. And Zara looked lighter somehow. The tension that had lived in her shoulders for years had dissolved. She looked happy in a way Min-jae couldn't remember ever seeing. They looked happy, complete, like they'd excised a tumor and were finally healing. Min-jae waited another month, gathering his courage piece by piece. Then, on a Saturday morning, he drove to their village, found their apartment building, and sat in his car across the street for 2 hours before they emerged. His son had grown so much. His face had started to lose its childhood roundness, revealing the man he would become. He was laughing at something Zara said, carefree in a way Min-jae had never witnessed before. And Zara, she was radiant. The weight she'd carried for years had lifted. She looked genuinely happy. Min-jae got out of the car. His legs felt weak, uncertain. His heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Zara. She froze mid-step, turned. The happiness drained from her face like someone had pulled a plug, replaced by something harder, colder. What are you doing here? I needed to see you. Both of you. Taeyoung pressed against his mother's side, eyeing Min-jae warily, like a stranger, like a threat. How did you find us? Does it matter? Yes. Her voice was steel wrapped in ice. It matters because I asked you to let us go. I asked for one thing, Min-jae. One thing. And you couldn't even respect that. I know, and I'm sorry. He took a step forward, stopping immediately when Zara instinctively pulled Taeyoung closer. I'm sorry for everything. For choosing wrong. For being absent. For taking you both for granted. I was an idiot and I lost everything that mattered. You can't just appear here and expect forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything except a chance to talk. 5 minutes. Please. Zara looked down at Taeyoung, who shook his head firmly. I don't want to talk to him, Mom. The words gutted Min-jae, opened him up completely. Son, I'm not your son. Taeyoung's voice shook but held steady. You told me once that sons matter to their fathers. But I didn't matter to you. I was never enough. That's not true. Taeyoung, you mattered more than anything. Then why did you leave us? Taeyoung's voice rose, tears spilling over. Why did you choose her? Why weren't we enough for you? Min-jae fell to his knees on the pavement, not caring who saw, not caring about pride or reputation or anything except this moment. You were enough. You are enough. Min-jae's voice cracked like breaking glass. I was the one who wasn't enough. I was broken and stupid, and I thought. His words dissolved into something between a laugh and a sob. I thought the past could save me from the present. But the only things that mattered were right in front of me, and I was too blind to see them. Min-jae. Zara's voice softened slightly, just a fraction. You can't do this. You can't appear after a year and expect us to fall back into your orbit. I know. I needed you to know that I'm sorry. That I see it now. Everything I lost. Everything I destroyed with my own hands. He looked at Taeyoung, his own tears flowing freely now, unchecked. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. I'm sorry I made you feel like you didn't matter. You matter more than anything in this world. And I was too caught up in my own stupidity to show you. Taeyoung wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Do you still love her? No, I haven't spoken to her in months. But you loved her more than us. I thought I did. Min-jae's voice was barely above a whisper. But love isn't about old memories or fantasies. It's about showing up. It's about being present. It's about choosing the people who choose you every single day. He looked at Zara. Your mother chose me every day for 9 years, and I took that for granted like an entitled fool. I won't make that mistake again. It's too late, Min-jae. Zara said quietly, her own eyes glistening. We've built a new life here. A good life. Peaceful life. And I can't risk Taeyoung's happiness on the chance that you've changed. I have changed. The empire is gone. Everything is gone. I'm not asking you to believe me on faith. Just give me a chance to prove it. How? However you want. Supervised visits. Letters. Phone calls. Whatever boundaries you're comfortable with. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever work is required. Just please don't cut me off completely. Zara was quiet for a long time, her hand absently stroking Taeyoung's hair. Finally, she said, I need to think about it. That's fair. And even if I agree, it's on my terms. Completely on my terms. You don't get to show up whenever you feel like it. You don't get to disrupt our lives because you're suddenly ready to be present. You show up when I say, where I say, how I say. Understood? I understand. She took Taeyoung's hand. We'll talk. But not today. Today, you go home and think about whether you're really ready to do the hard work. Because if you commit to this and then disappear again, you'll destroy what microscopic chance you have left. I won't disappear. Not again. I swear it. Zara nodded and began to lead Taeyoung away. But after a few steps, his son turned back. Dad? Yes? I'm glad you're sorry. Taeyoung's voice was small but firm. But sorry doesn't fix everything. Sorry doesn't erase what happened. I know, son. But it's a start. It has to be a start. They left. Zara's arm around Taeyoung's shoulders. The two of them whole without him. Complete as a unit. Min-jae sat on the curb and cried. Cried like he hadn't cried since he was a boy. Since before violence and power had taught him that tears were weakness. Cried for the years he'd wasted. For the love he'd thrown away like garbage. For the son he'd neglected while chasing ghosts. When the tears finally stopped, when his eyes were raw and his throat ached, he pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. I need to sell everything. His voice was hoarse but steady. Sir? The penthouse. The remaining businesses. All of it. Liquidate everything and set up trust funds for Zara and Taeyoung. Make sure they're taken care of no matter what happens to me. Make sure they never have to worry about money or safety. Mr. Park, are you certain about this? That's your entire life's work. I've never been more certain about anything. What's the point of an empire with no one to share it with? He hung up and looked at the apartment building where his family lived. His family that he'd abandoned. That had learned to survive and even thrive without him. They might never forgive him. Might never let him back into their lives in any meaningful way. But he'd spend the rest of his life trying to earn back what he'd lost. Not because he deserved it, but because they deserved to know someone could change. That mistakes didn't have to be permanent. That love, real love, was about showing up even when it was hard. He'd ruled Seoul's underworld with an iron fist. Had built an empire on blood and fear and calculated violence. Had controlled territory, money, lives. Had commanded respect through terror. But he'd never controlled what mattered most. His own heart. His own choices. His own capacity for presence. And in the end, the crown meant nothing when there was no one left to wear it for. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Min-jae's life. And that was saying something for a man who'd survived knife fights, bullet wounds, and the treacherous politics of organized crime. Zara made him wait 3 weeks before agreeing to let him see Taeyoung. The conditions were strict. 1 hour every Sunday afternoon, at a public park, with Zara present the entire time. Min-jae wasn't allowed to discuss the past or make promises about the future. He was simply allowed to be present. That first Sunday, Taeyoung barely spoke to him. They sat on a park bench while other families played around them, and the silence was excruciating. Min-jae wanted to fill it with apologies, with explanations, with all the words he'd never said when he'd had the chance. But Zara had been clear. Just be here. Don't perform. Don't promise. Just exist in this moment with him. So Min-jae sat, and breathed, and watched his son watch the ducks in the pond. And when Taeyoung finally asked, "Did you really love her more than us?" Min-jae answered honestly, "I thought I did. But I was confusing nostalgia with love. I was confusing escape with happiness. She reminded me of who I was before I became who I am. But the problem was, I didn't want to be who I am. I wanted to be someone else somewhere else. And that's not fair to anyone. Not to her, not to your mother, and especially not to you." Taeyoung nodded slowly, processing this. "Do you want to be who you are now?" "No," Min-jae said simply, "but I'm learning that I can't run from myself. I have to change from the inside. And that's hard work that I've been avoiding my whole life. Are you doing the work now?" "I'm trying. I sold almost everything. I'm in therapy twice a week. I'm learning about why I run when things get real. It's not an excuse for what I did, but it's a beginning." The second Sunday, Taeyoung brought a book. He read it while sitting next to Min-jae, not looking at him, but choosing to be in his proximity. Felt like a gift. The third Sunday, Taeyoung asked about Min-jae's childhood. What was it like growing up? And Min-jae told him the truth. About poverty. About violence. About watching his own father disappear into addiction and despair. About making choices that seemed necessary at the time but led him down a path he could never quite escape. "I'm not trying to make excuses," Min-jae said carefully, But I want you to understand that hurt people often hurt people. And the cycle continues until someone decides to break it. I'm trying to be the one who breaks it. For you. So you don't inherit this pain. By the sixth Sunday, Taeyoung was talking more. Telling Min-jae about school. About his friends. About the ocean near their new home. Small pieces of his life that he was choosing to share. Min-jae listened. Really listened. Didn't check his phone. Didn't get distracted. Didn't let his mind wander to business or problems or anything except this moment. This person. This gift of time he didn't deserve but was being given anyway. Zara watched from a distance. And Min-jae could feel her evaluating him. Testing him. Waiting for him to fail. He didn't blame her. He'd earned that suspicion with years of broken promises. 3 months in, on a particularly cold Sunday, Taeyoung said, I wrote you a letter. After you first came to find us. But I never sent it. What did it say? He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. Worn soft from being carried. He handed it to Min-jae. You can read it if you want. Min-jae unfolded it with trembling hands. Dear Dad, I used to love you more than anyone in the world. I used to think you were the strongest, smartest, best person who ever existed. I used to wait by the window every night for you to come home. Even when Mom said you'd be late. Then I started noticing you weren't really there even when you were home. You looked at your phone more than you looked at me. You left in the middle of my birthday party. You missed my school play. You promised to teach me to ride a bike, but you never did. I started thinking maybe I did something wrong. Maybe if I was smarter or funnier or better at sports, you'd want to be around. I tried so hard to be perfect. But it didn't matter. Then I heard you on the phone talking about her. And I realized it wasn't about me at all. You just loved someone else more. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I want to. But Mom says people can change if they really try. So I'm gonna wait and see if you really try. I don't want your money or presents. I just want a dad who shows up. Taeyoung. Min-jae read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. When he finally looked up, Taeyoung was watching him carefully. Thank you for sharing this with me. Min-jae folded the letter gently, reverently. This is the most honest thing anyone's ever given me. And you're right about all of it. Every word. Are you really trying? Every single day. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've done some very hard things. But yes, I'm really trying. Taeyoung nodded. Okay, we'll see. The months continued. Sunday after Sunday. Some good, some awkward, some filled with silence, some with laughter. Slowly, microscopically, trust began to rebuild. Not the blind trust of childhood, but something more mature, more earned, more real. Min-jae learned his son's favorite color had changed from blue to green, that he was scared of thunderstorms but loved rain, that he wanted to be a veterinarian because he loved animals more than people sometimes, that he had a best friend named Ji-hoon who made him laugh, that he missed Seoul sometimes but liked the quiet of their coastal village. All the things a father should know. All the things Min-jae had been too absent to learn. One Sunday, 6 months in, Zara asked to speak with him privately while Taeyoung played on the swings. You've been consistent. She said it like she was surprised. I expected you to give up by now. I deserve that. Yes, you do. She looked at him directly. But I'm also trying to be fair. You've shown up every single Sunday. You've been in therapy. You've sold your businesses. You're trying. I'm trying. Why? What changed? I lost everything. Min-jae said simply. And when everything was gone, I finally saw what actually mattered. It's a terrible way to learn a lesson. But some of us are slow learners. Zara smiled, just slightly. That might be the first genuinely humble thing I've heard you say in 9 years. Losing your family has a way of teaching humility. They watched Taeyoung on the swings, pumping his legs, reaching for the sky. I'm not ready to forgive you yet, Zara said quietly, and I may never be ready to be your wife again. That marriage died, Min-jae. I grieved it. I buried it. I've moved on. I understand. But I can see that Taeyoung needs a father. And you're trying to be one. So I'm willing to let this continue. To let you be part of his life if you stay consistent. If you keep showing up. I will. I swear I will. Don't swear. Just do it. Swearing is cheap. Actions are what matter. You're right. She turned to leave, then paused. Min-jae. Yes? Thank you. For finally trying. It doesn't erase what you did. But it matters that you're trying now. As Zara walked back toward the swings, Min-jae felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not happiness exactly, not redemption, but maybe the very beginning of peace. The sense that while he couldn't undo the past, he might be able to write a different future. A year after that confrontation on the street, Min-jae attended Taeyoung's 8th birthday party. Zara had invited him cautiously with strict ground rules. He wasn't to act like the host, wasn't to give extravagant gifts, wasn't to make the day about him. He brought a simple present, a book about marine biology because Taeyoung had mentioned wanting to learn about whales. He stayed in the background, helping clean up, refilling snacks, being useful without being central. At one point, Taeyoung brought Ji-hoon over to meet him. "This is my dad. He's trying to be better." Such a simple introduction. But it meant everything. "Nice to meet you, sir," Ji-hoon said politely. "Please just Min-jae. And it's nice to meet you too. Taeyoung talks about you all the time." After the party, after the other children had left, Taeyoung approached Min-jae while he was carrying trash to the bins. "Dad? Yes? Thank you for coming. And for not making it weird. Of course. I'm honored I was invited." Taeyoung hesitated, then said, "Maybe next time you could stay for dinner? If Mom says it's okay. I'd like that very much." As Min-jae drove back to his small apartment that night, in the modest neighborhood he now called home, he thought about empires, about power, about all the things he'd once thought mattered. He'd ruled territory with violence, had commanded respect through fear, had built towers of money and influence that touched the sky. But he'd never been as proud as he was today, cleaning up after his son's birthday party, being introduced as the dad who's trying to be better, being invited to maybe stay for dinner next time. The crown had meant nothing. But this microscopic rebuilding of trust, brick by painful brick, this was everything. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. This story is a reminder that the people who love us through our worst aren't guaranteed to stay forever. Sometimes we lose them. Sometimes we lose ourselves. But sometimes, if we're willing to do the hard work, we can find our way back to what matters. Please subscribe if you want more stories that dig deep into the consequences of our choices. Drop a comment below telling me, have you ever lost something precious because you didn't realize its value until it was gone? And if this story moved you, hit that like button. Your support means everything. Until next time, remember, love ignored becomes love lost, but love pursued with genuine effort might, just might, become love earned.